Today is Saturday, July 8th. Summer is in full swing, and if you tend to set high expectations for this season, only to have your plans sometimes fall flat, well, you're not alone. Today, we're focusing on how to design the summer you want and actually follow through. No, it's not too late. I'm excited to have Kendra Adachi back on the show. She's a systems expert and professional permission giver that you likely know as the lazy genius. She teaches us all how to be a genius about the things that matter and lazy about the things that don't. She's a 2-time New York Times bestselling author of The Lazy Genius Way and The Lazy Genius Kitchen, and the host of the Lazy Genius podcast, which I personally have on my playlist. So today, we are not only talking about what tends to make summer a sort of tricky season, but also Kendra is sharing her 3 ground rules that have helped take the stress out of summers so you can actually enjoy them. Welcome to the Newsworthy Special Edition Saturday, when we sit down with a different expert or celebrity every Saturday to talk about something in the news. Don't forget to tune in every Monday through Friday for our regular episodes, where we provide all the day's news in 10 minutes. I'm Erica Mandy. It's now time for today's Special Edition Saturday. Kendra, thank you so much for coming back on the Newsworthy.
Oh, I'm happy to be here, Erica. Thanks for having me.
I think we all sometimes have these high expectations for what summer is supposed to be, right? And then do we feel disappointed at the end? I mean, what do you find that people think that they should have in their summer, and then how does it end up?
Right. So I think what we do, there are certain seasons, and summer is one of them. I would say summer is one, and then the winter holidays are another. Those are like the 2 biggies, but we think that they need to be magical. Especially if you have kids, there are a lot of people who talk about like how many summers you have left with those kids. And while that is valuable and true to a point, there also is a lot of pressure attached to that. So what we end up doing is spending a lot of energy trying to manufacture magic. And it just does not work. So then by the time we get to the end of summer and our manufacturing has gone awry, or we gave up 2 weeks in because it was too hard and it didn't work, and then we feel like we wasted the summer, or you remember like fighting with kids or people whining about things or it being hot and like you never went outside in a sprinkler because it was just like too much energy to pull it out. Like this hindsight of this summer makes it so that we're like, man, that wasn't magical at all. And then when we get to the next one, we double down and we're like, we got to make it even more magical this time using the same practices that did not serve us before. So I think that we're just sort of in this cycle of trying to manufacture magic, and we need a different cycle.
Okay, so is it too late at this point to try to turn things around or change your mindset?
No, it's never too late, honestly. And I would say if someone is feeling that way right now, it's so important to remember that like, it's not that you did something wrong. It's just summer is a tricky season. It's got a lot of challenges depending on what your life looks like. And I think that when things are not going well in a season, we are not kind to ourselves. We're like, man, I messed this up. I did this wrong. It's already July, whatever. I'm out of time. No, just be kind. Take a deep breath. Like you didn't do anything wrong. So summer's just hard, and that's okay. And we can move forward with really small things to kind of make it something that feels good instead of feels like it's full of pressure.
So give us advice about how to create the summer that you want, or an example of how to think about it, especially if you're kind of overwhelmed by the thought of it.
Well, I have 3 summer kind of ground rules when I'm thinking about my season. The first rule is to say yes to what matters first. This is a lazy genius way of seeing things just in general, is that you want to be a genius about the things that matter and lazy about the things that don't. And in order to do that, you need to know what matters to you and say yes to that first, right? And I think because summer is a season that is really full of a lot of yes energy, like we have yes energy in our bodies where we're like, yes, we want to do all the things and like make it happen. But if you don't say yes to what matters first, you will not be able to maintain that energy for very long.
What's an example of that? Like something that matters versus something that doesn't?
This actually brings us into another one of my summer rules, which is a no right now is not a no forever. So I'm personally a reader, and my kids are 7, 11, and 13. When they were younger, reading mattered every summer, like a lot. I had the ability to kind of structure that. We're like, okay, guys, we're going to the library today. What a good ride this is going to be. Now that they have friends and they can ride their bikes places and they're being invited to things. And it's not that we don't read, but the way that I used to say yes to reading mattering is different now than it used to be. And so instead, so that's my example. It's saying yes to what matters first for us this summer. I want us to be kind when we're together and do things together. Let's enjoy that time rather than trying to force it into the same sort of shapes that we used to have, which was family reading time. So all that to say yes to what matters first, but also remember that a no right now is not a no forever. And even a yes right now is not a yes forever. Seasons really matter. Like your season of life really matters. And just because something doesn't hold the same importance this summer, maybe that you want it to, doesn't mean it never will or that it was a waste before.
Third ground rule.
Be flexible. There's this phrase that I use when I talk about time management, and it is that plans are intentions. They are not pass fail. Also, summer is notorious for these fluid days, especially if you are home with kids, or maybe you have to work from home with your kids at home. And so things are going to be just in flux. Even the weather sort of creates different routines. And if you hold tight to plans having to be pass fail, instead of just this is what we intend. But if it doesn't happen, it's okay, right? So to just keep a light hold on those plans and be kind to yourself when they happen and when they don't. Because if you see successful plans as like, we did it, we made it, then what you do is you kind of teach yourself that if you don't make it, it's bad. And that's not true either. So like it's neutral all around. Your plans are neutral. Be flexible.
Things can shift. You can do something you planned for one day, another day, and still have things in your back pocket.
Yes. I always say learning to pivot is so much better than learning to plan.
One of your recent podcast episodes talked about naming multiple prototype days to help plan out the summer. Can you explain what that means?
So what I love about kind of a prototype day is this idea that like maybe today is just a day that we like tend to things in the house. You know, maybe the kitchen is covered in this project that we did, that we all made. You made muffins with your 2-year-old, and that is going to cause a disruption. Like it's just the way it's going to go. And so maybe on that prototype day of like, okay, we're just going to clean today. It's like a theme day, but you can be kind of loose within that. I know that people who have little kids, it's fun to have something like an adventure day every week. You go out and you just try something new and it has a name. But what happens within that day can be so flexible, can adjust based on your energy, on moods, on weather, on resources, on money, on all of those things. But having kind of that umbrella, that sort of prototype to look at it through, that lens to look at it through, just feels really freeing, but not restrictive.
Do you like to have a list of kind of go-to things for your kids' ages?
I do like that, and yet I don't have that because I get focused on the list instead of my kid. Now, that doesn't mean that having a list of things, of ideas for your kids and their different ages is bad. I think that's actually really great if that sort of aligns with how you live, and that could be a kindness to yourself to have a list of things.
Yeah, if you're not a great planner, you can sometimes feel panicked that you have no ideas in the moment.
100%. So that's why self-awareness is really great. It's actually really good to pay attention to, is this helpful for me to have a list? And then if it is, then that kind of gives you a direction of what to put on that list based on what matters to you. The list is not the magic. It never is. The system is not going to save you. The more important thing is to name what you need and then to move forward in that direction.
So how do we figure out what matters most? Kendra Adachi explains why it's important to start small. And we talk about making sure each family member has a great summer, including yourself. That's coming up. But first, a quick break for our sponsors. I love the taste of summer. It's peak time for summer produce, and I really appreciate that HelloFresh makes sure you get all the best picks all season long. Their ingredients travel from the farm to your door in less than 7 days. And that kind of quality is really important to me. Plus, even when I'm pinched for time, I don't want to have to turn to takeout and delivery again and again. I love that HelloFresh has the fast and fresh recipes that are ready in just 15 minutes. Not only is it better tasting and healthier than takeout, it's also 25% cheaper. Oh, and it's okay if you're not a pro in the kitchen. I never would have thought I could make bulgogi beef noodle stir fry with cabbage, carrots, lime, and scallions. And yet, thanks to HelloFresh, I did. Whether you like HelloFresh or Green Chef, they're both owned by HelloFresh, so you actually get the option to switch between the brands at a discount with me. So go to HelloFresh.com/newsworthy50 and use that code newsworthy50 for 50% off plus free shipping. Again, go to HelloFresh.com/newsworthy50 and use code newsworthy50 for 50% off plus free shipping. Also, instead of a second sponsor today, here's a reminder to add another podcast to your playlist called The Jordan Harbinger Show. It's won a bunch of podcast awards for good reason. I know Jordan personally, and he is a great interviewer. He goes in depth with all types of fascinating guests, like the conversation he had with an undercover FBI agent who builds relationships with potential terrorists, or another episode that tells the story of a cinematographer who discovered a lost city in the jungle and made one of the most important archaeological finds of the century. He's also had more well-known names on the show, from Matthew McConaughey and Ludacris to LinkedIn founder Reid Hoffman and more. Jordan has a gift for getting his guests to reveal never-been-heard-before stories and insights so we can all learn from their unique superpowers. He also has other helpful types of episodes like how to quit your job the right way. So go check it out. Search The Jordan Harbinger Show. That's Harbinger, H-A-R-B as in boy, I-N as in Nancy, G-E-R. Wherever you listen to podcasts, add it to your playlist for After the Newsworthy when you need something to listen to that's longer than 10 minutes. We hope you love it. Okay, now back to our conversation with a lazy genius. You alluded to this earlier, but family members can have very different ideas about what's considered fun. How do you recommend navigating all those differences?
Oh, man. Right. Well, one of my favorite things that we do every summer is all three of my kids get their own day. And they look forward to it. And they kind of look forward to each other's too, because it's become a tradition for us. Like they know that's part of summer. As we have a Sam day, a Ben day, and an Annie day.
What about Mom and Dad Day?
Mom and Dad have a wedding anniversary in the summer. And so Mom and Dad Day is we leave you with Grandma. That's what Mom and Dad Day is. But also, that's a really great point, because in previous seasons when my kids were younger, I did need to prioritize my own day. Seasons of having little kids, it's really hard to find time and resources and help to be able to separate yourself for an entire day from your kids. So there are certain seasons where you might have like a mom morning instead of a day. You can start small in that. But because I have over time learned to kind of prioritize that, Mom Day's not actually on the calendar. I'll just take it. But as I say that, I'm realizing because it's not written on the calendar, Mom Day and Dad Day is not written on the calendar, it doesn't teach the kids that that's also just as valuable. I'm glad you said that, because that kind of speaks to, I want my kids to know that it's just as valuable for their parents to have their own day too, where they get to say yes to the things that they want to say yes to.
Okay, let's do a kind of, this is going to be hard because there's probably so much you could say about each topic that I'm going to bring up, but let's try to do kind of a rapid fire round of a variety of summer things, and you're just like top tip for that thing.
Okay, yeah, let's do it.
So first, how to focus on work while the kids are home and you're trying to work from home.
Holy moly. Okay. The principle that I would pull out for this is to let people in. And it is really hard to ask for help with kids, especially when everybody else has their own thing. But to be creative about how you can let people into your own work. For example, if someone else is kind of in the same boat as you, this happened to me and a friend a couple of summers ago. We shared a babysitter. And so the babysitter would watch all of our kids at once, like 3 mornings a week, so that we could separately work. And then we would help each other with carpool so that we could each have like a longer day. It was magical for that summer. Have we done it every summer? No, but it was helpful and creative for that summer because that's what we needed. So pay attention to what you need, what matters now, and see if you can let someone into the process to make it easier.
Getting ready for a vacation and also coming home from a vacation.
The magic question is, what can I do now to make something easier later? So just ask yourself, that's my favorite thing. What can I do now to make coming home from vacation easier later? Because we all have different challenges when we come home. Mine is we have a grocery delivery delivered like when we come home, so that I don't have to think about what we're going to eat for dinner. Like I sort of know the first dinner when we get home, and then there are groceries, and I don't have to be like, oh no, we don't have milk, or we don't have fruit, or we don't have whatever. So that's one of mine. There was someone who recently shared, it was actually a couple of years ago, shared on my podcast that they go to the laundromat after they get home from vacation, even though they have a washer and dryer in their house, so she can sort of like emotionally decompress while listening to the hum, but also getting the laundry done. And I was like, that might be the greatest thing I've ever heard in my life. So that made coming home from vacation easier for her. So that's really my advice is ask, what can I do now? What one thing can I do now to make coming home from vacation easier later?
How to actually fit in something you want to do this summer.
It is just as much of a priority as anything else. If you're having a hard time making something fit, it probably is not due to scheduling or resources. It's due to guilt. And you just need to get rid of that. You just need to tell yourself that like, oh no, I get to do fun things too, and not apologize or say that, your partner is babysitting. They're not, they're parenting. You get to go do fun things too. You count just as much as your kids or anyone else does.
What's your top tip for just beginning in terms of identifying what matters to you?
Solve annoying problems instead of overwhelming problems. The point of naming what matters in many cases is there is a pain point. There is something that's frustrating you or overwhelming you. And the first thing that you want to do in trying to solve that problem is to be like, okay, what matters here? Because if you don't name what matters, you're solving the wrong problem. But what we often do is we say, what matters about my overwhelming summer? And it's so big. And you're like, well, it's because I don't. And then you list 25 things and you don't know where to begin. One of my things is I just don't want to get like annoyed at my kids. I mean, I'm going to, but I don't want that to be a disconnection in my relationship with them. I want to try to stay patient with them no matter what's happening. And so one of the things that I can do is instead of solving the overwhelming problem of like disrespect or kids fighting or whatever, is to solve the annoying problem of when one kid wants to go outside and the other doesn't. And they want to play with each other and they start getting mad about it. It's like, okay, how can I solve this annoying problem? That's not overwhelming. It's not hard to solve annoying problems. It's impossible to solve overwhelming ones.
And we've talked about it before. It's just keep it small, as you are pointing out now.
Absolutely. So you can name, as you name what matters, you can actually make that small. Like make it as small as possible. What matters about this particular thing right now in this moment? And what's the most annoying thing about this moment? Solve that. It's amazing the difference it makes.
All right. Last one is preparing for the end of summer and or back to school time.
So you can start to ask the magic question again now if you want to. You can say, what can I do now to make that transition easier later? But I will say this. I think because we live in a culture that really pushes productivity and optimization and all of that we have to sort of like be ahead of the game all the time. What we do is we do not give our future selves credit. My advice would be, especially right now, if you're listening to this in July, assuming that school doesn't start August 1st, your future self is not incompetent. You can enjoy where you are. Good is here now. You don't have to already start thinking about that, because that is sort of part of why we feel a lot of overwhelm and kind of anticipatory stress, is because we're already thinking and stressing out about the next transition.
So true. I've been known to say that's a problem for future Erica.
Yes, it is. And sometimes we can do things now that help future Erica, but they're really tiny. Like do those tiny things now, but you don't have to like set up a homework chore chart system for going back to school on July 4th. Please don't do that. Just be where you are.
Is there anything else that you want to share that you're personally going to be a genius about and lazy about this summer, and any other final thought you want to leave us with today?
I just want to give everyone permission. We have already eaten so many hot dogs for dinner this summer. So many. Ones I've cooked, ones other people have cooked, ones that are at restaurants. I mean, we are becoming hot dogs. And I just want to tell y'all that's okay. Like, that's okay for you to lean hard into something that feels really easy. I am going to be lazy about variety this summer, even more than I usually am. And so do not feel badly if you are having to make or choosing, not even having to, if you are choosing to make a choice that leaves space for other things that matter more.
Well, thank you so much to Kendra Adachi for sharing her expert advice with all of us. If you found this conversation valuable, you will love Kendra's Summer Docket. It's a 5-step guide to making the season fun, so check it out at the link we've provided in our episode notes. And we so appreciate it if you share this episode with a friend and let other people know all about the newsworthy. As always, we'll be back soon with our regular 10-minute daily news roundups, available every weekday morning to help you start the day in the know. We'd say it's the lazy genius way to stay up on the news. So let's chat again on Monday. Until then, have a great weekend.